Welcome to Sliders and Wings, a podcast about the TV show Sliders
and the TV show Wings
and all the other forgotten TV shows of the 90s.
This is Valerie Temple.
And I'm Rachel Cox. Hi, Val.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing.
I left the house a couple times this week. Whoa, what, how exciting.
They're here for the aspirational nature.
Right, which is, like going outside every once in a while.
Actually, I was outside all day today, which is why I'm so tired. I'm March sunburned, so my skin is just feeling like a little thingy.
I did this thing for work where I had to table, and I was wearing a mask, and we were in front of a very powerful window. And so it felt like it was 90 degrees inside of this building. And I got a sunburn on the back of my neck and a sunburn just here, like raccoon style. So I look amazing right now.
A democratic sunburn.
Just the eyes. It's beautiful.
Well, I can't see it now.
You can't really tell. I was like putting an ice pack on it. It was bad. I was like, this is insane.
Well, because we're becoming mole people. We're not used to being outside.
And I'm a pale person, just regularly, just being outside in the world regularly. My skin has never developed to a defense mechanism against the sun. And so being inside so long has just only made that worse. So I think
I've seen you wear a swimsuit once in 10 years, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I once had a sunburn for a full year. I went to Atlantic City and did refuse to buy, we forgot sunscreen, and I refused to buy it because in Atlantic City, they mark it up to $14 or something. And I was like, I won't buy it. I won't do it. Even though I could have just walked 2 blocks off the boardwalk and bought it for $2 or whatever, but we never did it. So we just stayed the whole day in the sun, refusing to get sunscreen, and I was so deeply baked. And it never tans for me. It's just, it stays red, and then that's it. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So we are here to talk about Lois and Clark.
Yes, the New Adventures of Superman. Don't forget the full title.
Sorry.
Because clearly the network was people won't get it from just Lois and Clark. They gotta know that it is Superman.
What's always driven me nuts about this show is that I've always thought, and now I realize I don't know if this is true, I assume that the title of the show was a play on Lois and Clark.
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
I don't think so.
Okay, because I think I watched this show, and then my history class did a segment on Lois and Clark, and I thought at the time that this was a play on Lois and Clark, and it's never made sense to me because the Lois and Clark expedition is not that famous.
No, well, I think
it's not famous enough to make a pun for a Superman show.
It isn't. I mean, it's famous to high schoolers or
And the other thing is, if you Google Lois and Clark, and if you forget the and, you'll get Lois Clark, who was James Garner's wife.
Yes. Yeah, it's just not good. I mean, now there is a new TV show coming out now, I guess. They have solved the problem, which that show is called Superman and Lois. So you get it.
Not Lois and Clark and Lex.
Not Lois and Clark and Lex, or Lois and Clark : The New Adventures of Superman. It's just
Lois and Clark and Chloe go to Nexium.
I love it.
So what are your memories of this show?
So I never watched this show, even though it seems directly up my alley. It seems just like a softball, hit it out of the park. I would watch this show. I never watched it. I had a friend who was obsessed with this show, which is so funny to me, but she loved it. but I never watched it. And I was kind of wondering why, because it does seem like my sort of thing, because it is like, okay, Superman, that's interesting. And then it has this like moonlighting vibe, which I love. I love a moonlighting like couple that are like lots of dialogue, bantering back and forth. And I was wondering, like, why did I never watch this? I was just only aware of it as a cultural phenomenon, I guess, even though it does not seem like it was much of a phenomenon, because I was looking at the Nielsen ratings, and like the highest it ever was number 44 in the Nielsen ratings. Which seems weird. That was in season 3, but it seems weird because I was aware of it. You know, it was a thing to me when I was growing up, but I was trying to figure it out. Like, why did I never actually watch it? I think it was because of what it was up against. It was on Sunday nights at 8 p.m. And at least in its first season, it was up against, okay, Murder, She Wrote, I was too young, but then it was up against Martin and Living Single, which that is
you love Martin.
That is what I was watching. That is what I was watching. And then the other show was up against was Sequest.
Oh, I did watch Sequest.
So Lois and Clark was probably number 3. You know, TV at that time was such a, you know, you had to pick a lane. If you were watching one show at that time slot, you couldn't watch the other shows. So
kids today don't understand the choices that we had to make.
They really don't. Like, you had to like kill your darlings. You really had to like make a decision. And like sometimes it was very easy. You're just like, nothing else is on in this time slot for me. But sometimes there's 3 or 4 shows that might be appealing to you, but if it didn't grab you right away, or there was a show that you were already watching for 2 seasons or something, and like a new Lois and Clark was new, you weren't going to switch. So yeah, it's tough.
This is before, you know, comic books took over the movie media landscape. So
I have to say,
before its time.
That's what's so funny.
Although Superman is not like a very popular one, right?
No, I mean, Superman is like, I feel like Superman and Batman are like Coke and Pepsi, where like maybe Coke has the edge. Like people like Coke more, but Pepsi is still like the competitor. And I feel like Superman is Pepsi.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, where you're just like, no one really likes it as much, but it's still up there as the rival.
Yeah, Superman has always been, I mean, he's like the wholesome. He's supposed to be kind of wholesome, and I think people don't like wholesome like right now. They like dark and twisted and tortured.
He's definitely, I don't think it would be harder to do a dark Christopher Nolan version of Superman, although I'm sure they've tried, and I just haven't paid attention because I don't pay attention to superhero stuff as much.
Well, I know you want to know if I watched it, and I will tell you, I think I watched it, but I don't think
you were.
I mean, I watched it, but I don't think I was really following it. I mean, I was definitely very aware of who Teri Hatcher and Dean Cain are. I thought it was a pretty big show. I mean, it was on for 4 seasons.
Yeah.
This is another show that Les Moonves had his grubby little fingers in. Yeah. I would love to we should do a survey actually of all the shows on our list, which ones Les Moonves was involved in.
Right. And it does seem like, just reading about the history of this show, it just seems like there was so much studio network interference that ultimately sabotaged the show.
It was canceled on a whim, and it like ended on a cliffhanger.
Yes, they had already told the show, you're getting a 5th season. And then they kept switching it around in its timing, and the ratings plummeted because no one knew when to watch it. And so season 4 ends on a cliffhanger that is never resolved because they were like, oh, you get a season 5. And then they're like, oh, just kidding. You're canceled. Like,
isn't that funny to think of a time when like people are out there trying to watch a show? Like when Eric was, as Eric told us, he was trying to watch Saved by the Bell, the college years.
Yeah.
And he was just showing up and it wasn't on. But like
he kept
the audience is there. They're
day.
trying to watch it and it's just not on. Like imagine if like the stuff was hidden.
That would never happen in streaming because it's always there. It's like you just search it in your search bar and it shows up.
Although have you had the experience of starting to watch something and then you don't finish and then you go the next day to finish and it's been pulled from the streaming service overnight?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's the worst.
So I have not seen the last 7 episodes of The Good Place because I like fell off. You know, we were consistently watching it on Hulu, but like they did that thing where they only have the most current 5 episodes available and then it just like drops off. And we fell off for some reason. We were doing something, we lost our attention, and then by the time we're like, oh yeah, we gotta watch The Good Place, it had already, we were behind by like 2 episodes. And then you can't just, at least in the last season, you can't just, oh, I missed 2 episodes.
I think it's all on Netflix now.
Yeah, we have to go back. But now I feel like I have to watch the whole last season again just so I remember what happened, which I don't want to do.
No, you'll be able to emotionally track what's going on.
Yeah.
But last time this happened, I said, okay, the next time that there's a double pilot, we're going to go to episode 2. We all agreed to that. Yeah. And then I didn't check and already purchased it and started watching it before I realized it was a
An hour and a half, baby. Yeah. Which, I mean, I feel like it went by pretty fast. So, like,
I watched the 2/3 of it and it was fine. And then I got tired. So I had to save the rest for today. And then I kind of like watched the last third in a rush. I mean, I saw it all. I just wasn't
paying attention.
I had to do it in 2 sittings.
Yeah.
But the pilot basically starts the Superman story again, where he shows up in Metropolis and he meets Lois Lane. And I mean, I think that the point of the show and the reason why her name is in the title is that they're actually trying to give a female character a bigger part and like show what a good reporter she is and how great she is, and how smart she is, and she's not just like his sidekick. Although she is too stupid to recognize what someone looks like without his glasses.
Right, and the show that she's a great reporter, like right up front by showing, oh my God, that's so funny.
Oscar was tricked because he watched some of it and he's like, that's a woman.
Yeah, she's dressed as a man in the opening scene. Like, we're introduced to Lois when she's in man drag. She's like wearing a fake mustache, wearing like a fat suit basically. And
I think her breasts are bound.
Yes. No, like there's
unwrapping the binding.
There's this weird scene where she like takes scissors and puts the scissors under her shirt and she's like cutting something. And I was like, what is she doing? And then I realized it was an ace bandage that was like binding her breasts down. But like that was her, like, wow, she's an amazing reporter, look at her commitment. It just reminded me of a TV news reporter in Columbus who very famously like dressed as a homeless man for a week and did these like on the spot reports about like homelessness in Columbus in the, I guess, mid to late 80s. And he was like really trying for like a local Emmy, and it was just so embarrassing. So she's like an amazing reporter.
And she busts some sort of big drug ring. And okay, this is the kind of newspaper where every time something good happens to Lois, they throw her a party. Correct. There were 2 different parties. Sorry, like Lois did such a great job. There's balloons, there's cake, there's like champagne. I'm like, this is not a newsroom.
No, not at all.
But yeah, that's how celebrated and wonderful she is. She's like the best. She's the best investigative reporter in all of Metropolis.
Best. And she's like, Teri Hatcher plays Lois Lane, and she's incredible. She's great. Like, she's so charismatic.
No complaints about Teri Hatcher.
Her like kind of characterization of Lois Lane is great. She's kind of like hard-edged, very ambitious.
She looks a lot like Phoebe Cates.
She does. She's got this like blunt bob, which I'm sure many ladies in the 90s took that to their hairdressers
I was thinking about getting it when I was watching it. I was wondering if my hair was thick enough.
You're like, this is great. This is a great haircut. I'm going to go for it. And then this like yokel from Kansas shows up, Clark Kent, and he's trying to get a job at the Daily Planet. And it's weird.
But we don't know where Metropolis is, right? It's never named.
It's never named.
I always got the sense that Metropolis was like an hour away. Like it's just outside of it. Because he gets on a bus and it says like, oh no, it doesn't.
I've always assumed that. So like Gotham is very clearly New York City.
Yeah.
And I've always
Metropolis is Tulsa.
I've always assumed that Metropolis was Chicago. Like a Midwestern metropolis.
Well, that would make sense, yeah.
But like
if Chicago was the center of the world.
According to IMDb trivia, so like there's that scene where Lois Lane wants Chinese food, so he's like, I'm gonna go, and so
I had so many bones to pick with that.
Yeah, Lois Lane wants Chinese food, and Clark Kent's just like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go get Chinese food, and of course he's Superman, so he just flies to China, and there's this like very old school graphic of the map of the United States and like, a line that shows you.
Oh, right.
And according to IMDb, where that he starts out at is Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, they kind of picked a point between like near New York.
Yeah, they were like, it's somewhere in the Midwest. It's in the middle somewhere. But like Scranton is just not, that's not a metropolis. Like, sorry to anyone in Scranton, but.
Well, let's just say the basic plot of this episode is that Clark moves. He does something very clever to get himself hired at the Daily Planet, the paper where Lois works. I mean, the main plot is that in this reality, they're setting up a space station, like a space colony.
Yes.
That people are going to live in orbit.
It's almost like it's futuristic.
It is a bit
for
futuristic.
Today. Yeah.
Yes.
Which it seems like space travel is just normalized. And so they're already colonizing
Did they say there was a colony on the moon too? Yeah, there's like colonies, places. But the main thing is that one of the shuttles or something explodes and everyone's really upset. And
it's very like the Challenger explosion.
Yes, but it turns out there's a conspiracy and that Lex Luthor is behind all this, and he basically kills all these people with these explosions to kind of make the space program look like they don't know what they're doing. And then he wants to step in and say, but we have the Luthor space shuttle ready to go.
Right, which I'm not sure why he wants his own space station.
I think it's just a control thing. Like he wants to set his own. He could basically, if he controls everything and it's his own shuttle, then he can hide all sorts of nefarious things on the shuttle and cams and who knows
like
what.
The capitalist version of a space station where he can like set the prices and like control commerce.
Right.
On the colony or whatever.
What's funny is that the space program like runs outside of from Metropolis, like somewhere in Metropolis, they're letting off shuttles.
Right. So Superman was created by Siegel and Shuster. They are the comic book like creators of that character, who they're from Cleveland. NASA is in Cleveland as well. So like it kind of felt a little like, oh, okay.
It never really made sense. Oh, because they shoot them off from Florida, but then they land them somewhere. Like I always had this theory that the reason why aliens are always in the middle of the country, that's why they're landing there, is because it's easier to aim.
Oh, yeah.
Aim to the middle.
Yeah, just right in the middle. Just right in the middle.
But basically the whole show is just them uncovering this plot.
Right.
But I think in the end they don't actually. I mean, they save lives, but they don't actually reveal like what the conclusion of the end is, that they now know that Lex Luthor is a bad guy, but nobody else knows.
So Lois Lane is like this ambitious reporter, and one of her like goals is to get an interview with Lex Luthor, who has not given an interview to anybody. So she is doing everything in her power to like get access to this guy. And of course, Lex Luthor is like, well, she's a babe. I'd like to go out on a date with her. So like, I'm going to like play along a little bit with like he's not really going along with the interview thing. And then in the background, it's just like Clark Kent, you know, it's him being Superman, but he has to hide it. But he also like likes Lois. And so there's just a lot of like little like Superman things that he's doing. Like he's in his apartment in Metropolis and he's like walking on the ceiling, and like there's a lot of
putting up to change a light bulb.
Yeah, there's a lot of like little effects where he's doing something like where it's like this guy is unusual.
Okay, I was annoyed that like at one point she goes to his apartment and she opens the fridge and he's just living on like marshmallows and soda, and I thought that it didn't go with his character, because his character is actually supposed to be really, really educated. He knows about all sorts of things. He knows about science and biology and like obscure cultures around the world, and then he would be eating marshmallows for dinner.
His like fridge is filled with like junk food. His like cupboards are filled with junk food.
I didn't get that at all at first. I was like, what's going on? Is this not his apartment?
Me neither.
It was so disgusting.
I like, she opens up the cupboards, she opens up the fridge, and I was like, obviously you were supposed to be getting something. I did not get. I was like, is it supposed to be messy? I don't understand. And then she has to say it. She's like, well, you eat like an 8-year-old, but you have a body like a Greek god.
She said you look like Mr. Hardbody.
Yeah, Mr. Hardbody. Yeah.
Did you notice that in the beginning when I have a rant about Lois's sister that she lives with.
Which, by the way, okay, so like this whole show, it seems like they were trying to retool it constantly.
I'm guessing that sister did not make it to the second episode.
She was only in 3 episodes.
Okay,
so
right.
Lucy Lang.
That was my sense. It was like, this girl's not gonna make the cut.
Yeah, Lucy Lang, I guess, or
Lane.
Lois Lane. Yeah. Okay. Oh God. Lucy Lane. Yeah, she's.
You're thinking of Lana Lang, the other person he went to high school with.
I am. Who was in Smallville?
Yeah.
I'm like, it's so confusing.
Who was almost lured into the NXIVM cult.
Yes, exactly.
She just went to a few volleyball games and then she's like,
but yeah, like so much alliteration that I get confused.
I didn't understand it. Like, is it a joke or
no?
How was there a Lois Lane and a Lana Lang?
Which, by the way, so Perry White is the like head of the Daily Planet.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the J. Jonah Jameson of Metropolis. He's like
he's nicer.
He's nicer, and I like him a lot. I love that character actor. Like, I know him.
Yeah, I was trying to remember his name. I think he has like a common woman's name.
Lane Smith.
Right.
His name. And I know him from Son-in-Law.
Oh, with
Pauly Shore. With Pauly Shore. He's like the dad in Son-in-Law, which is iconic to me. And then he's also like a bad guy in The Mighty Ducks. And then he's also a bad guy in My Cousin Vinny. So I love that actor so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so I have a sister, so I can speak to this, but what was just absolutely ridiculous to me was that like twice when you'd see Lois come home, she would walk in the door and her sister would walk up to her and just start going, why can't you meet a nice guy? You're going with these losers. Like, you're not going with the right. You spend too much time working. Like this long rant about Lois and finding the right guy. And what do you do? Right. It's like, don't you have something to do?
Yeah.
Go away.
Besides wearing like a very weird 90s dress, like with a like long sleeve shirt under it. Like, I was like, what is this outfit? I feel like Lucy Lane just existed to say in the pilot, Lois, I just want you to meet a super guy. Yeah.
I wrote that down. Yeah.
It's like, yep. That's what Lois and Clark is. It's like,
I can take that off my notes.
Check.
But I can't even look at Teri Hatcher without thinking about Teri Hatcher's iconic episode guest appearance on Seinfeld.
I know, which she talks about Superman in that. Like she
does.
She chastises Seinfeld for like liking Superman too much.
Oh, that's true. But I was just wondering. The whole episode is about whether her boobs are real or not, and I don't. The whole episode of Lois and Clark, like I don't notice her breasts.
No,
like
well, she's wearing.
But in Seinfeld, she's got these like the whole thing was about how her breasts are so amazing and they're so big. I mean, can you imagine that show being on today?
No, I know. They're real and they're amazing. Or
and they're
real
spectacular.
And they're spectacular.
They're spectacular.
Right. They're spectacular. Well, she has agency.
She wears a lot of blazers on Lois and Clark.
She looks great. The costume design for her was, I thought, great. She had like a real look to her. She was wearing these she was wearing suits all the time, skirt suits. She looked great.
Style-wise, it did seem to be doing that 40s/90s.
Yes.
Like, so they're kind of trying to bring some 40s style into it as an homage to the original comics.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It really works for Superman because Superman was started in the 40s or whatever. So it's kind of cool that, the 90s are bringing that back. The show does seem like it's ahead of its time, but it also seems like a throwback a little bit also.
I'm wondering, I'm just wondering about how the rest of the series went. Was it one-off stories? Were they all about Luthor? Like, this thing with Luthor must just get so boring.
Well,
are there any other bad guys?
I mean, this is so weird. So I was like looking this up because since I didn't watch the show, I was kind of trying to figure out. Okay,
but you do own it on DVD.
We bought it from Half Price Books. I was like, well, this seems like something we should revisit. So, and I never watched it. So I was like, yeah, like let's do it. This was the first episode of Lois and Clark I ever watched.
Okay.
Ever. So I was like I didn't want to spoil myself, but I also kind of wanted to see what was going on with this show. The guy who played Lex Luthor quit in season 1. He didn't like his commute. I guess he was commuting.
He looks just like Chris Sarandon.
Yes, he does. Okay. Exactly. But I guess he didn't like his commute from New York to LA.
Well, I read that, but I thought that happened at the end of season 4.
No, spoiler. They kill Lex Luthor at the season finale of season 1.
Oh.
Can you believe that? A show about Superman and they kill Lex Luthor at the end of season 1? It's crazy.
Okay, so then there's no Luthor for the other 3 seasons?
What I could see is that he comes back as a guest star or at least a voice.
Oh my God, wait, there's something really good here on Wikipedia.
That?
So that they replaced so we mentioned in the Torkelsons that the guy who plays the next door neighbor comes on this show as Jimmy Olsen.
Yes.
He is replaced after the first season with Justin Whalen, who I can't describe, but you will definitely, he looks really familiar. Yeah. And this says the official reason, according to the producer, was that he looked too similar to Dean Cain.
Which, okay, that's fine, but like that's what you do when you're casting the show. The viewers were so confused; they could not tell the characters apart. Yeah, but it's just like that's not the problem with the show. What it seems like is that after season 1, the network was baffled that it wasn't a bigger hit. So what happened was after season 1 concluded, they fired the creator of the show,
and all the writers.
And all of
writing team.
All of the first season writers. They replaced Jimmy Olsen. And they cut out that Cat Grant character.
Yeah, she's
the sexy lady. And I guess
who also dresses like a cat. Her name is Cat. She dresses like a cat.
She's almost like a drag character.
Okay, but I'm looking at all the villains that they bring in. These are horrible. The prankster, Metallo, the toy man, and the criminal group known as the Intergang. and then fan favorite villain Tempest. Yeah. And H.G. Wells appears as a time traveler.
Oh, H.G. Wells. Oh, that's great. That's a little, literary.
I think there's not a lot of good stuff in the Superman stories.
There is.
I did actually think I watched all of Smallville. And
I didn't.
Smallville had, I was probably like a teenager or like just out of being a teenager I watched. And that had teen stuff and
he's
hormone
a teenager.
Stuff.
He's in Kansas. Which I guess that was my accent corner. Someone from Kansas, would they have an accent?
I didn't have anything for accent corner. And I forgot to do the Mad Magazine thing
Oh, I've got a good one.
Oh, wait.
Would you like to hear my Mad Magazine title?
Yeah. Well, mine is Lois and Clark, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's good. That almost feels like it would work as a Mad Mag, because like sometimes they would like, you could tell the writers at Mad Magazine were stumped, so they would just like write in something in the introductory paragraph to like make it make sense. They're like, all right, so this is about this. But my Mad Magazine title is Lose It and Cluck. Lose It and Cluck, the snooze adventures of Blooper Man.
Okay, so I just thought of one, which is Lois and Clerks.
Yes.
And they're in Kevin Smith's Clerks.
My first impulse was to just be like, oh, Blois and Snark. I was like, what's the porno version of Mad Magazine? Like the porno title would be like, oh, it's obviously Blois.
I think that the Superman story, that his origin story is good, and then his villains aren't really that good. Okay, we tried to watch the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
And we just like dropped it halfway through. It was just so weird and slow and boring.
It is weird and slow.
It was like 2.5 hours long or something. It was super long.
No.
And but also that I think that I started watching it and I was pleasantly surprised, and I was very, very charmed by Dean Cain. It led me down a Dean Cain rabbit hole. I thought, he is so cute. He is so charming. He is so muscular. Cute. He played football for Princeton for 2 years and dated Brooke Shields. And I was just like, I can't really not anything since then. Okay, but then I remembered, because he hadn't even turned into Superman yet. When he arrives, he has no intention of doing this alter ego thing. And there's a cute montage where his mom helps him make the costume, and they try out these different content.
I feel like that montage, that is the like tell that this show was created by a woman. Because that was what I wanted. I was like, oh, they did this whole montage, like a long montage to the song playing is I Need a Hero.
Yes.
And Dean Cain is getting help from his mom, Ma Kent, to like come up with a Superman costume. And there's so many ridiculous versions that they go through before they get to the iconic Superman outfit. And like the first one is like there's leopard print and like it's green. It's so good. Mm-hmm. It's so fun.
Yeah, it was very cute. But it was very fun. But after I thought, okay, they're so charming, and I just started thinking that this show must have failed because there's not a lot here. And then when he became Superman, I remembered, oh my God, it's so hard to believe that this person does not recognize him without his glasses on.
Yes. It's ridiculous.
Nobody wants to mess with Superman and put a mask on him or just some eyewear or like something to cover his face. So everyone just has to go along with this whole concept, which is bonkers.
There's actually a funny part in the pilot where they kind of try and like explain why no one recognizes him as Clark Kent, and he just sort of like gently puts on and off his glasses. He's just like, see? And what's awesome is like his mom is the one who's like, won't they recognize you? And he's like, no. And he puts on and off his glasses, and she's like, oh, okay. Like,
whatever you say, dear.
Yeah, she clearly does not believe him. She's like, sure. Yeah, that'll work, you know?
My other observation about the show is that it seemed like they probably blew a bunch of money on these special effects. Like he does the red lasers out of his eyes. He floats and he flies. And those are like, these were things that were very expensive at the time. And it seemed like they cut corners everywhere else. Like the sets feel really claustrophobic. Like everything feels really, really small and fake. Like it feels like a soap opera set.
No, it does. It almost feels like a play, you know, especially the Daily Planet set is very much like an elaborate play, but a play nonetheless. And I think that might have been the problem too, is that like, the special effects were supposed to be so exciting, but I think the idea that Superman doing Superman things can get old. You're like, okay, that's that's fine, I guess. You
But I
know,
also think, I'm trying to think. Okay, so Spider-Man. I remember really liking the first Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire.
me too.
Partially because the special effects were so good. And it is kind of like he's flying. But then sometimes the superhero stuff is really good when there are some people that the person confides in that know.
Yes.
And it's very frustrating with Superman that he never confides in anybody.
Well, he confides in his parents, Ma and Pa Kent.
Yeah.
And I like them. I like them as characters.
Oh yeah, they were really good. They were cute.
His dad is played by the guy who plays his dad. I was like, why do I know this actor? And I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, he was Marla Hooch's dad in A League of Their Own. I was like, oh yeah, okay,
I don't know that movie that well.
Oh, I love that movie. So.
I probably recognize him from something else because
he just kind of has like a sad, like
looks like a bloodhound dog.
Yeah, like a basset hound. Yeah, he just like has like these sad, droopy eyes.
He kind of looks like Ned Beatty. I was thinking Ned Beatty, but
correct. Yes, he's like TV Ned Beatty.
Superman flies so slowly. He like lifts up and like slow. Like anyone could have just like grabbed him and pulled him back down.
Yes, yeah.
Goes out the window. There's a weird scene where Lex Luthor has some sort of Indian, I think, servant or driver or assistant.
Yes.
And he's doing this is the weirdest part though, is that Lex Luthor is kind of half lying on the ground in front of his fireplace. It's smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
But like I can't tell if it's almost like he's lying in one of those camp seats.
No,
but, like there's no chair and there's no pillow. He's just kind of like awkwardly.
But he's like prone. Yeah.
Right. He's prone. He's kind of laying back. And a cobra comes and he turns around and he just makes eye contact. The cobra is hissing at him and like about to attack. And he just stares down the cobra and a tear drips down his face. And then finally the cobra goes away and there's never an explanation given for it.
I thought I had drifted off and like wasn't paying attention and I didn't understand what was happening. But
it looked like it was some sort of test or exercise.
Now I'm realizing that there was no sense to that. Because it truly did not make sense. And
but his assistant who was wearing a
like Punjabi
turban, he clearly like sends the snake to him, and then the snake goes away, and Luther's
maybe
like, "Thank you."
Yeah, maybe they follow that up in the.
Oh right, then maybe that happens in the other episode.
I don't know, but
it's I would guess that he's doing some sort of like
magic,
mind control, power thing, like or meditation
kind of thing, or
it's like a self-improvement thing he's doing.
Oh, okay,
it's like a crazy billionaire, right?
Yeah, it was
like that. As for the most 90s, I don't think there is anything. It's just very much not 90s.
But there is a smattering of 90s technology, like sort of
there's a hologram.
There's a hologram of the space station that Lex Luthor wants to develop. But like the most 90s things that I like kind of like latched onto was like there's a scene where Clark Kent is like checking in with his parents and both of his parents are in the same line and his mom is on this like cordless phone that is very 90s looking. And then there's also just like Lois Lane typing on like a 90s computer.
An Apple IIe or
it's just like one of those screens where like
it's on black.
You're typing it like it's blue or like green and like the letters are like a lighter green or something. And then also just the gradient design of the text on the credits, like just screamed 90s to me. But I also just thought that it was interesting. This is not 90s, but like Cat Grant's blatant sexual harassment of Clark Kent goes unaddressed.
Well, yeah, I mean that's all very
of the time, I guess.
Yeah, but also like Lois kind of makes a joke about her being a hooker. Makes many jokes about her being like kind of like slutty and
Cat Grant, by the way, is the gossip columnist, and she is she looks like a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills or something.
She's just like very hypersexualized, lots of makeup.
And I was looking her up. I was like, who is this lady? Where, like Aaron said, he was like, what soap opera did they rescue this lady from? And so I was like looking her up, and I guess she was on Babylon 5.
I saw that.
So I thought it was amazing. And also like 10 episodes of Dynasty, which like that makes a lot of sense because she just looks very Dynasty. So much makeup, big hair, like leopard print, everything, high slit. She's introduced by her legs. Her legs in a high slit skirt walk into screen. And that was when Aaron was like, I know who that is. It's Cat Grant. Like that was like imprinted on his memory, which I loved. This is totally random, but like Lois and Clark makes me think of a very, very memorable episode of American Gladiators that I saw when I was a kid. There was a special called American Gladiators Celebrity Challenge. I don't know if you remember the format of that show, but it would be a pair of guys and a pair of women competing against the American Gladiators. So Turbo and Nitro and, you know, whatever, Lace or whatever. In 1994, they did a celebrity version of it, but it was American Gladiators was a reality show, but it was in the very early days of reality. And so they were doing a celebrity version of this show, but they very clearly couldn't get celebrities because I think they could get Dean Cain. Like Dean Cain wanted to do it because he was trying to promote Lois and Clark. So he's like, I'm Superman. Look, I'm going on American Gladiators to show like I'm just like an amazing specimen of a man, right? His competitor on that episode was John C. McGinley, who we would know from years later as he was on Scrubs.
Yes. The mean guy.
At this point, and I remember this clearly, because I was, you know, it was 1984, I was 13. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, he's not a celebrity. The introduction to him, the voiceover is just like, you might know him from Platoon or Wall Street. And I was like, no, I don't. And he's got this like dyed blonde hair and it's long and curly and like they're pitted against each other. On the women's side, the two celebrities, quote unquote, are the brunette tool time girl from Home Improvement, not Pamela Anderson,
right?
Brunette, versus a lady named Heidi Mark, who was a Playboy playmate and an occasional actress in that she was on like 3 episodes of Baywatch. But really her claim to fame was that she was dating Vince Neil. And so like they were able to like cut to Vince Neil in the audience, like here he is. And I just remember this so distinctly, like Dean Cain competing on American Gladiators. And it was wonderful to me. And I found it on YouTube. And another thing I remember about it is that it was also like the early days of reality TV. So the production wasn't as tight as it would be. So I remember this as a 13-year-old. There's this point where, did you ever watch American Gladiators, Rachel?
No.
Oh, I watched it. Like it was on like Sunday afternoons or something. And I watched it every week with my brothers. And there were all these like events where like they're competing against these weird hard bodies. And I think the marquee event was like The Wall, which was just basically like a rock climbing wall that they would like try and get up to the top as quickly as possible. And I remember they were about to do this event and Dean Cain, the camera's on him and Dean Cain is like saying a line. If there was ever a time to fly, this would be it. You know, he was like trying to do like a Superman, like kind of like tie-in, but like the camera in the middle of him saying it, the camera pulls away to one of the American Gladiators, so he doesn't get to say it. He's like, but you still hear him say the full line, and then he gets to the top of the wall. He wins the event, and at the top of the wall, they're interviewing him. They're like, how does it feel, Dean Cain? You won the event. He's like, well, if there was ever a time to fly, this would be it. And then, like, it very clearly was just like, they wrote that line for him to say. He had to say it. Like, the producers of Lois and Clark were like, you have to say this line. Get it in.
Wait, do you remember this very well because you just watched it recently, or
the line itself I did not remember until I rewatched it. I was like,
I wonder if there's anything buried in my brain that I remember as clearly as that.
The whole thing is very clear to me. Like, it's just burned. It's one of the, I think, the weirdest pieces of television I've ever seen is this, like, Dean Cain versus John C. McGinley versus Heidi the Tool Time Girl versus Vince Neil's girlfriend.
It was important to you.
It was important to me. So
can we do What You Watching?
Yeah, we can do What You Watching. What You Watching, Rachel?
Kind of dropped Amy Sedaris' show because I made the mistake of jumping into the third season and then going to the end. And then when I tried to go back to the beginning, the shift in tone threw me off and I didn't want to watch it anymore.
Oh no.
Well, she starts off the show more, I think, as herself. And then towards the third season, it becomes more scripted and stylized.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was used to. But then I started watching a show that I really like called The Alienist.
Oh, I've heard of that show. What is it about?
It's not about aliens. There's a title card that comes up every single episode that explains what Alienist is.
It's not about aliens.
It says in the 19th century, it was believed that people with mental illnesses were alienated from their true natures. Therefore, therapists, psychiatrists were called alienists. So it's basically about, it's very much like, what's that show about the serial killers? That was on Netflix. So with Jonathan Groff.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I love that show. It's like that. It's the formation of the psychological profile, you know, how the FBI started tracking serial killers, developing profiles and actually realizing that there was a way to predict their behavior. It's like that, but in 1896 New York. So it's like the setting of
Mindhunter. Is that it?
Mindhunter. Yes. Mindhunter. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So it's kind of like Mindhunter. It's like using psychology to track criminals, but set in 1896 in New York. And like off the bat, I could tell they weren't using green screens, but I thought, where the hell did they film this? That actually looks like New York back then. They filmed it in Hungary.
Really? Okay.
And there's all these old buildings. I mean, I don't think Hungary's done that much development in the past 100 years, so it's perfect. It's a combo. I think they do some in Hungary and some that are CGI, but it's if you're just interested in what New York looked like then, I think it's, from what I've read, pretty accurate. Dakota Fanning is the main female lead, and she's great.
I love her. Actually.
I love her. I'd never had any opinion on her whatsoever. Now I think her character is really good.
I always thought it was interesting when Elle Fanning surpassed her in sort of like the public opinion, because I've always liked Dakota Fanning better.
Right, but now if you go see her in Alienist, you'll think like she's the best.
She's very talented.
But it's really interesting because this friendship evolves between the alienist, who's like the psychiatrist, who's played by Daniel Bruhl, who's actually a German Spanish actor who's like played like many different nationalities. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he's not like that recognizable because he's not that handsome. And Dakota Fanning, and then third guy is Luke Evans. Do you know who Luke Evans is? The British actor. He played Gaston in the live action Beauty and the Beast.
Okay.
And they're just all really good. And then Luke Evans is just so good. And Luke Evans' character is in love with Dakota Fanning's character, but like she doesn't really think it would work or whatever. And the setting is great. The characters are great. It's kind of about this friendship that develops. And there's like a few other people. The subject matter is horrible. The whole first season is about boy prostitutes being murdered by a serial killer.
Oh God.
And then I was like, and then there's a second season. So they call it a mini series. There's just 2 seasons. Okay. It was on TNT, but I'm watching on HBO Max. So I get to the first season. It's pretty dark, but I've kind of said before on the podcast, I feel like the crimes on shows have just gotten more and more extreme.
Yeah.
Because we're so jaded. Like they have to be, it can't just be prostitutes being killed, right? It has to be child prostitutes being killed. And they can't just be killed. They have to be, vivisected and
right.
Like everything has to be to the nth degree. Yeah.
Totally eviscerated.
Because otherwise I'd just be like boring and turn it off.
Did you ever watch Hannibal?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect example.
I was just like,
how many serial killers are there in the Northern Virginia area? Hannibal?
No,
there aren't that many.
That drove me nuts. I was like, okay, so you have this many serial killers and they're all this creative? Like, come on. Like, we're all artists in our murder, you know? I mean,
and they're all within like tri-state area.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, give me a break.
Okay, so I was all ready to have something else happen in the second season of Alias, but do you know what the second season of Alias is about?
No.
A baby murderer.
Oh, that's not for you. That's not for you at all. You don't like that.
I'm just like telling myself, they're not real babies, they're not real babies, they're not real babies, they're not real babies.
It is fiction. It is fiction.
It's just fiction. I mean, I'm like, I gotta get through this, but yeah, I think the second season isn't as good as the first one, but
it sounds good, but I mean, it does sound like a little bit of a.
But here's the thing, like, why would a psychologist need to track a regular? You know, what I mean, like the only people they need to track are the like complete, you know, people that are completely unpredictable and are doing insane stuff. So like, why else bring the alienist in, really? So
I love that he's called the alienist, though. that is just a little bit of like a bait and switch to me.
I think it will interest you, the costumes, Dakota Fanning's costumes.
Ooh, what time period is it? Did you say
1896? So the Victorian.
Nice.
But what's really disturbing about it is, I mean, they show it's Gilded Age, right? So they show high society and the parties, and there's like JP Morgan is in it, and Hearst, guys like that. And then there's also like the child prostitutes and the people in the slums and everything. In the second season, they're in this maternity ward, and it's just such a reminder of how horrible everything was back then, which is also a reminder that if there is some sort of other cataclysm that sends us back technologically, that's where we're going to be. And that's what's terrifying to me, that we're like
on the razor's edge of like being just in the worst possible.
Yeah, I mean,
we're back to zero, you know, like
right, like without all this.
We think we're so advanced, but like we're just.
Well, you and I aren't, right? Like,
yeah, no, we can't even use our microphones.
Exactly right. So what you watching?
It seems like the exact opposite of what you've been watching, but I've been watching WKRP in Cincinnati
on Hulu.
No, I inherited the first season like on DVD, and I've been watching it while I was like on the treadmill. Mm-hmm. It is such a funny show. You know, I was kind of like
80s or 70s.
It starts in the 70s and goes into the 80s. And
is it like news radio?
No. I
remember seeing it sometimes on when it was in syndication.
Well, that's the thing that I was looking it up because I was like, this show is so funny. It like it has a lot of
Lonnie Anderson's in it. It
has a lot of like great jokes. The characters are all really like distinct and funny. And I was looking it up, and it only had 4 seasons. I was like, wow, really?
Wow. I thought it was much more of a touchstone than that.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. It got canceled after 4 seasons because they kept like moving it around on the schedule, and then they just canceled it. And then it became a huge hit in syndication. Like they put it into syndication, and now it is like, I mean, it's super well known. Like it was outperforming new shows when it was in syndication, which I think is amazing. I love that idea. I love when that happens, where something is sort of rediscovered.
You've intrigued me.
Yeah, it's funny.
There's a character named Venus Flytrap.
Venus Flytrap, played by Tim Reed, who people would know from Sister Sister.
Oh, the dad
from Sister Sister. Yeah, he is like a disco-y DJ. Howard Hesseman, who was on Head of the Class. Do you remember him?
Yes.
He plays Johnny Fever. He's like a rock DJ. Mm-hmm. It's great. Also, like the station manager is played by Gordon Jump, who most people would know as the Maytag repairman from the remember those commercials where it's like a Maytag repairman who's like he's bored because Maytags are so great that they don't ever have to be repaired, so the repairman has nothing to do.
Oh, he's bored. Yeah,
he's bored.
So did you know that there was a show called The New WKRP in Cincinnati?
Yes, I did. Yeah, and I think it was because
is that on our list from the 90s?
It should be, but I think it was because that show like was rediscovered like only a little bit after it went off the air.
Oh, but Howard Hesseman's not on it.
No, but I think they guest star or whatever. But it's an incredible show. And also, you should at least check out the theme song, because it is one of those theme songs for a comedy that is a little bit maudlin. Like, the theme song's like about like a lost love, but he's like, if you're looking for me, like, I'm on WKRP in Cincinnati. It's just like
Howard Hessman to me is most famous actually for being the FBI agent from Clue.
Oh, yes. Oh, I love Howard Hessman. I think he's so great. He's so funny to me. Do you remember the iconic episode of WKRP in Cincinnati where they do
the turkey?
The turkeys. So that's episode 8 of season 1. Basically one of the funniest episodes of TV of all time. It was like their first season, episode 8. It's like, it has a lot of things that I like, or like workplace comedies, and like their outfits are just really amazing. It's just like so 70s, and
looks good.
And then there's just like a lot of I guess like the premise of the show is that a new like station director comes in and changes their format from like easy listening to rock and roll. And they're at like a struggling station. And so like, there's a lot of like rock and roll stuff. They're like doing promotions. They're like, there's these like concerts.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I never thought too much about it.
You would know. Yeah. It was funny because I have good memories of watching like reruns of WKRP. It was like always kind of on when I was a kid. Like the idea of like watching it now, I was like, you know, that this is dumb. Like I wasn't ready to really like it. But then I was putting it on. I was like, I'm laughing out loud. This is so funny.
All right. It's good to know.
Yeah.
An actual good recommendation.
Yes.
All right, so we don't know what we're doing next week.
No, we don't. It'll be a surprise for everybody.
Yes, excellent.
This is a cliffhanger, not much like how Lois and Clark ended their entire series, on a cliffhanger.
All right, well, good night, Val.
Yeah, good night, Rachel. This has been Sliders and Wings. You can email us at slidersandwings@gmail.com.
All right, good night. Thank you.
Good night, Rachel.